You're tuned to the nowhere signal. What you're about to hear was never meant to be found.
The town didn't have a name. At least, not one that was posted anywhere. No signs. No markers. Just a fading Tulane rode off the coast, winding down through a thicket of crooked trees and damp, salty fog. Then the road stopped. And there it was. The locals simply called it the village. And when pressed, they'd say, it's not much of one anymore. I arrived in late October. I'd rented a cottage for a few months through a website that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. No reviews. Just one photo, gray shingles, chipped blue trim, and a single, crooked fence post in the yard. But I didn't care. I wanted quiet. I wanted to disappear. And the village offered that in abundance. The first thing I noticed was the wind. It never stopped. It wasn't violent, just constant. Always whispering through the cracks in the wood, brushing against the windows like a forgotten lullaby. And at night, the air smelled like salt and smoke. Not cigarette smoke, not campfire. Something older, like oil lamps and burnt paper. The second thing I noticed were the candles. I saw the first one on my second night. A thick, orange pillar candle sitting squarely on the front step of the house across the lane. It hadn't been there earlier in the day. There was no wind that night. Odd in itself, yet the flame didn't flicker. It stood perfectly still. Straight, bright. The house was dark. No movement behind the curtains. Yet the candle burned like someone had just placed it there. The next night, I saw more. A tall red one outside a greenhouse 2 doors down. A short waxy nub barely flickering in the gravel near the corner store. Each one alone. Always lit. Always placed after sundown. I mentioned it casually to the woman who ran the general store. Her name was Mags. Is there some kind of holiday coming up? I asked, pretending to browse canned soup. She glanced up without moving her head. Why? Just candles, I said. Outside all the houses. Mags gave a tight-lipped smile. Just how we keep track of things, she said. Track what? I asked. She didn't answer. Just rang up my groceries and said, be sure to stay indoors after dark, Joan. Fog's unpredictable this time of year. I returned to my cottage. A low mist had rolled in over the cliffs, crawling down the hills like something alive. I left the porch light on and closed every curtain. But even then, I could see faint orange glows from outside. Little embers placed on porches and walkways like markers. Or warnings. I opened the window slightly and listened. Somewhere, faint footsteps echoed on gravel. Soft, steady, not rushed, just deliberate. Like someone walking a route they'd taken many times before. I peeked through the slit in the curtain. There, across the road, a figure moved beneath the street lamp. Long coat, wide-brimmed hat, a paper bag in one hand, something slender and tall in the other. He walked to a dark doorstep, knelt slowly, and placed a candle from the bag. Then, with a tiny brass lighter, he lit it. The flame rose instantly. No wind, no hesitation. Then he stood, turned, and kept walking. I didn't sleep much that night. Somewhere near 3 a.m. I heard another candle being placed. This time, closer. The sound of something glassy touching wood. I held my breath and stared at the door. There was no knock. Just the smell of wax. And salt. And something faintly metallic, like old pennies. When I finally cracked the door at dawn, there was nothing there. No candle. No footprints. Only a small smudge on the wood. As if something had been placed. Then removed. The next day, I walked the village with purpose. Notebook in pocket. Hood up. Trying not to look like I was watching, but I was. I passed the library boarded. The bakery closed until spring. A single church steeple, missing its bell. And candles. More than before. Placed on doorsteps like seasonal decorations, but none of them matched. Some were fresh, clean wax. Others melted halfway down, curling like old bark. Different colors, shapes, scents. Outside one house, I saw a blue candle with 3 wicks. The family inside had their blinds drawn tightly, a scrap of black cloth nailed across the window. Another house had a single candle so thin it looked like a taper from a ritual. Its flame was low, flickering like it was gasping for air. The strangest part, no one ever seemed to notice them. Kids kicked balls nearby. A man swept his porch, careful not to bump the candle right beside his shoe. It was like they had become background noise. I returned to Mag's at the general store. "Is there a reason why the candles are all different?" I asked. She didn't look up this time. "Different meanings," she said. "What do they mean?" "Depends who you ask." "I'm asking you." She paused. Then slowly, as if reciting something from memory, red means loss. Orange means illness. Blue's for those who've crossed. Green is waiting. Black's for the end. White's for a mistake. I wrote them down. Who decides what candle goes where? She shrugged. Candleman does. Who is the Candleman? Mags gave a small, tight laugh. If you see him close enough to ask, you're probably already on the list. That night, I stayed up again. This time, I left a chair by the window with a clear view of the lane. Just after 1 a.m., he appeared. Same coat, same hat, but I noticed a limp in his left leg. He dragged one foot slightly rhythmically, like he wasn't used to walking on land. He moved with care, each step measured. He stopped at houses, pulling out candles from the same brown paper bag, lit each one with the same brass lighter. I followed him quietly, shoes off, keeping to the trees. It was like tracking a tide. He never looked back, never hurried. Eventually, I lost sight of him down by the docks. I walked to where he had stopped last and saw the candle he had placed. It was white, and it was sitting on my doorstep. I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen with every light on, staring at the candle through the window. I didn't touch it, didn't even open the door. The flame didn't waver. It was completely still. A perfect tier of light. Balanced. Patient. By morning, the candle was gone. Not burned out. Gone. No wax residue. No scorch marks. But now, scratched faintly into my front step, were 5 thin lines. Etched into the wood as if by fingernails. Or claws. Later that day, I found a note tucked under my door. Plain paper. No signature. You weren't on the list. But now you are. Don't ask again. The white candle reappeared 2 nights later. I'd just turned off the kitchen light when a soft clink tapped against the wood of the porch. I rushed to the door too fast. There it was. White wax. Shorter than before. Still unlit. Balanced in the exact same spot. This time, sitting in a tiny porcelain dish that hadn't been there before. No footsteps. No sound. No figure disappearing into the trees. Just the candle. Waiting. I left it untouched for 2 days. But each night, the air in the cottage grew heavier. Like the fog outside had started seeping into the floorboards. The wallpaper felt damp. The dishes smelled faintly of burnt tallow. I heard dripping behind the walls, even though no faucets were on. I tried talking to Mags again. She wouldn't even make eye contact. You still have it? She asked quietly. The candle? She nodded. Don't light it, she said. Even if you want answers. Especially then. Why? Because white means it's not for you. It never was. I didn't listen. That night, I lit the candle. I don't even know why. I was tired. Tired of silence. Tired of the way the wind whispered my name through the gaps in the shutters. Tired of pretending I wasn't scared. The wick caught instantly. No hesitation. The flame flared blue. I froze. It wasn't fire. Not really. It was too clean. It didn't cast shadows. The corners of the room remained dark, and then the knocking began. 3 soft taps on the back door. Not the front, not the side. The back, where the porch had rotted through and no one ever walked. I stood, waited. Another 3 knocks. A pause. Then, Joan. The voice was soft, familiar, like my mother's, but wrong, warped through static. "You shouldn't have lit it." I stepped back and blew out the flame, but the candle kept burning, now pulsing, like a heartbeat. I tried to smother it with a towel. It burst into blue flame, but the towel didn't burn, just dissolved into ashless gray nothing. The knocking stopped. Silence fell, and then the house groaned deep and low, like it had exhaled for the first time in decades. I turned toward the kitchen. On the far wall, a new door had appeared. Small, circular, not a trapdoor, not part of any renovation. Just there, painted black with a tiny brass handle. The candle flickered once, then died. I didn't open the new door that night, but I left the candle on the windowsill, cold and warped, its blue wax clotted in strange patterns. It looked like a map, or a warning. The next day, I walked to the church. Not to pray, just to see if it still had a working phone. Of course, it didn't. But I did find something else. In the back pew, scratched into the wood with a pocket knife. Light it equals invited, blow it out equals followed, leave it alone equals forgotten. I stood there for a long time. I'd lit it, I'd blown it out, which meant I was now both invited and followed. That night, I heard the Candleman humming, a low, tuneless melody from somewhere near the trees. And outside, the white candle was burning again. I hadn't relit it. No one had. The fog came in thick that night. So thick it felt like wool pressed against the windows. No stars. No moon. Even the porch light was swallowed whole. Inside the cottage, it was darker than usual. My phone wouldn't hold a charge. My flashlight flickered and died. And the candle, that damned white candle, burned on its own. No wick. No wax. Just light. Around 2 a.m., I fell asleep. Or thought I did. It was one of those sleeps where you're conscious, but trapped. Unable to wake fully, yet too aware to rest. I saw a shoreline. Vast. Endless. Every 10 feet, a candle stood in the sand, each with a name carved into its base. Names I didn't recognize. Except one. Mine. Right at the end of the line. Joan Morel Whitewax. Blue flame. Cracked at the top. I reached for it, but the sand gave way beneath me, swallowing my hand. The sea rose fast and silent. And from behind, I heard the Candleman whisper, "You lit it too soon." I woke gasping, sweating, but my feet were wet. I looked down, my kitchen floor was soaked. Seawater. A tiny crab scuttled under the cabinet. Gone. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes. It was gone. Dry again. The fog still wrapped the house like a second skin. At noon, I visited Mags again. I told her everything. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she leaned forward and whispered, "You've drawn him close now. The more you look, the more he listens." "Who is he?" I asked. "No one knows. But he's not new. The Candleman's been part of this place longer than the shore. He doesn't come for people. He comes for mistakes." That night, the fog never lifted. The door on the kitchen wall opened on its own. It didn't swing. It simply blinked into being. One moment, a blank wall. The next, a black oval void. I stepped closer. Inside, I saw a hallway that shouldn't exist. Wood-paneled, lit by candlelight. On the floor, wax strips formed words. "Come see where they go." I didn't enter, but I listened. From within, I heard voices, all in whispers. Layered, chaotic, familiar. Like every conversation I'd ever had in a dream, overlapping at once. Then a single clear sentence cut through. "Joan, you're the only one awake." I slammed the door. It vanished instantly. The candle outside still burned. I threw water on it. The flame hissed, then turned black, and began to rise, smoke curling into shapes I didn't want to understand. I ran inside, locked everything, turned on every light. But the shadows in the corners had changed. They were watching me now, breathing, waiting. That morning, someone had left a package at my front door. Inside, a single green candle, unlit. A note written in heavy pencil: "Light this and stay inside. Do not speak. Do not move. Not until you hear the bell. And if the bell doesn't ring, a run." That night, I did what the note said. I lit the green candle at dusk. It sputtered for a moment, then flared with an emerald glow. Not bright, not warm, but steady. I stayed inside, turned off every light, sat in silence. No sound, no wind, just the candle. Even the fog seemed to pause, hovering just beyond the windows like a held breath. Hours passed. My clock stopped ticking. The hands froze at 11:57. Somewhere in the distance, I heard waves crash louder than they should have been. Closer. Then a low metallic ringing. Not a bell, more like a buoy, far off at sea, echoing through layers of time. Was that the signal? I waited, held my breath. The green candle flickered once, then again. Then knock, knock, knock. 3 taps. Not at the door, at the window. The one I never opened. I stood slowly, heart in my throat. Outside, just barely visible in the glow of the candle, a man. Tall, coat dripping seawater, hat tilted forward, shadowing his face. But I knew it was him. The Candleman. He raised a hand, held up a small brass bell, rang it once, a sound like steel pulled across bone. Then he pointed not at me, at the candle. The green flame rose, changed color, red, then white, then black. And when it turned black, the Candleman vanished. No fog, no footsteps, just gone. The house exhaled again. Everything seemed to tilt, not physically, but something beneath reality shifted. I picked up the candle. It was cold. The wax had hardened mid-drip, curling into the shape of a question mark. The note was gone. I opened the door slowly. The fog was gone. The air was warm. For the first time since I arrived, the stars were out. And across the village, every porch was bare. No candles. No light. No flickers in the night. I left the next morning. Didn't pack. Didn't call anyone. I walked down the same 2-lane road I came in on. Hitchhiked until I reached a town with a name. Booked a room at a motel with buzzing lights and awful coffee. I slept for 20 hours straight. Weeks passed. I didn't tell anyone. Not really. Just wrote it all down. Then one evening, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside, a new candle. White, unburned, smooth as glass. And a note. "We don't forget the ones who leave. But you lit it. And now, you carry him."
The nowhere signal will return tomorrow. Until then, sleep light.